Before we begin this podcast, please be advised that the following episode contains language that some listeners may find offensive and inappropriate. The opinions expressed by the host and guests are their own and do not reflect the views of the podcast producers. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome back to Voices of a Killer. This week, we're joined by Jacob Hearne, convicted of killing a close family member at 19 years old. At 21, a self-confessed video game nerd with thick glasses and pale skin, Jacob doesn't fit the mold of a would-be killer. However, Jacob is responsible for the brutal deaths of two individuals, both of which took place in his teen years. Today, Jacob spares no detail in recounting his crimes, and as Jacob confesses to his 2022 murder for the first time publicly, we hear firsthand how an ordinary young man was pushed to the point of murder. We explore the influence of Jacob's addiction to violent video games, the deep depression Jacob dealt with, and what the news reports got wrong about his case. Stay tuned for a story of love turned to hate as we relive the darkest hour of Jacob Hearne's life on this episode of Voices of a Killer.
So, Jacob, I'm looking at this computer screen right now with your case, and what I see is a 19-year-old boy, a young man, in a mugshot. I want to know, you had a life prior to being 19 years old. What was that life like?
It wasn't much of a life, really.
Did you grow up in a small town?
Yes.
Where was that at?
I spent the first few years of my life in St. Genevieve, and then the next bigger part of my life in Farmington.
Yeah. So take me back to the days that you were just a young child, your family and all.
All right. So when I was a young child, most days were spent with taking care of my mother and her boyfriends while they were getting drunk and high, and my siblings while they were starving.
So you lived with your mother and her boyfriend?
Yes.
How many siblings did you have?
I have two half-siblings.
Two half-siblings? Your siblings are with your mother's boyfriend that you're talking about?
Yes.
Where was your father at?
At the time, I was uncertain. He was never really in my life.
Had you ever met him?
I met him briefly one summer.
Did your mother's boyfriend, which is your half-sibling's father, did you have a relationship with him?
Sort of. It was pretty strange. It's kind of a toxic.
Yeah. Did your mother and is it safe to say stepdad or what?
Yeah, there was no marriage.
Okay, so your mother's boyfriend, what was their relationship like with your mother and him?
Well, so it was like partying mostly, and sometimes it would be, just mostly abusive, really.
Like how?
It was toxic, very toxic.
How was the abuse?
Well, there was a lot of verbal and emotional conflict where they would scream at each other throughout the night, and whatever problems they were having. It's hard for us to sleep sometimes, even siblings.
So, tell me about your extended family. Did you have a relationship with your grandparents?
Yes, I was like my grandma's. I was a grandma's boy. She was like the one savior of my family throughout my whole life.
Oh, really? How did she become that person?
Well, my mom would constantly dump me and my siblings off on her every chance she got. My mom would try to avoid, responsibilities as a mother as much as she could.
Okay, one of those. So how did your grandma, did she display in front of you guys that she didn't approve that, or was she very, open arms, or what?
Oh, well, yeah, she was very open-armed. It strained her a lot, though. It was rough. It was hard to take care of three rambunctious, troubled youngsters.
About how old were you about what range whenever you were getting dumped off at grandma's?
Roughly ages 4 and 7, through those years.
And your siblings came with you?
Yes, so most of the time.
What was the days like spending at your grandma's? Was your grandparents around, or the grandpa around too?
Grandpa passed away before we were born.
Okay.
But
was that your mom's mother, I'm assuming?
Yes.
Is it mostly you guys just hanging out, or did she take y'all places and do fun things, or what?
Occasionally we would go to the park and stuff, but usually it was just hanging out.
Yeah. What's a memory that you remember, like a good memory of her that you remember back in the day?
Yeah, there was this one time that she came over to get me, right? To come over to stay with her for a few days.
Mm-hmm.
And my mom's boyfriend had wanted me to clean my room first. He was just kind of being, he was just kind of being an ass. He wanted me to clean my room, wasn't clean enough apparently, and so I was panicking and crying and stuff, and I was hectically to stuff things in places, and my grandma calmed me down, and she helped me clean my room and she talked Frank down, and which is my mom's boyfriend at the time, and we ended up going over and having a good weekend together.
Yeah. Did you enjoy going over there?
It was the only time that I could really be a kid.
It's at grandma's?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I deeply enjoyed it.
Yeah. I can't say enough about my grandparents. I have so many memories of them being very open-armed to all of us, and they play a different role than mom and dad. Mom and dad are a little stricter, and, I don't know, grandparents just have that specialness about them, and it sounds like your grandma kind of had that same thing, would you say?
Yes.
Growing up in small-town Farmington, Jacob Hearne idolized his maternal grandmother. Jacob's grandma, whose first name was Phyllis, was a stabilizing figure in an otherwise turbulent childhood. Nurturing, open-armed, and kind, Grandma Phyllis took on more of a maternal role for Jacob than his own mother did. There's a warmth in his voice as he reminisces about the time spent at Grandma's. While in his mom's house, Jacob often had to care for his younger siblings. At Grandma's, Jacob could let loose and be a kid again. It was a welcome escape where he could receive the affection and security he lacked at home. Although Jacob's account of his grandma is glowing, his mother maintained custody of Jacob throughout school. This rocky, neglectful home life began to rub off on the young boy, and he earned a reputation as a troubled kid.
Did you get into drugs at all around this time?
Well, no, I was mostly just on prescription medication.
What prescriptions were you on?
I took a medication called Geodon. I think it was an antipsychotic, and some stuff for allergies, loratadine.
What would make you take? What would you make you take the psychosis drugs?
Well, I'm not the most sane individual, from my own opinion, and my doctors shared that opinion when I was through my behavioral problems. I would have issues. My brain just didn't process things the way it should have processed things. It was I don't really know how to explain it.
Yeah,
it's just rough.
How'd you do in school?
I was a fairly troubled kid. I didn't always pay attention in class, but I was mostly A's and B's sometimes when I applied myself. But
at some point, you're growing up. How was high school and growing into an adult and getting out of high school?
I never actually got a chance to go to high school.
Okay.
Due to prior cases.
Right. So you're 7th, 8th grade. What kind of kid are you back then? If I were to ask somebody, who is Jacob?
Well, in school, I was that was the point where I started slacking off severely. So I had no interest in really going to school, and so I just kind of laid my head down in class. I was kind of one of those troubles, but not really wanting to pay attention or do anything. Really? I was a mess.
Why did you think that? What caused that?
It was a lack of interest and enthusiasm. I just wanted to be at home playing my games. I didn't want to deal with people.
Yeah.
It was one of those, I don't know.
So you started, basically slacking off in school and all that. Did your grandma know about this?
Yeah, she wasn't happy about it. And I used the excuse of bullies and stuff, and just not being able to pay attention. And she knew what was really the problem, though. I was staying up too late at night playing video games and didn't have the energy to focus. That was
really the problem? Video games?
It really was, honestly. I can say without a fact that even though I denied it for so long, it was really the games.
Yeah, and I do know that. Here's the thing. I grew up with video games in the 80s, Nintendo and all this stuff, and I was really big into it. And it was almost like an addiction. Of course, many of us grew out of it, but I do see that games have gotten really serious for some people, and it is like an addiction, and they play it constantly all day, and they eat while they do it, and they put the game on pause to shower and use the bathroom, and that's about it. So were you that kind of person, like addicted to games?
Yeah, it was so bad that I probably should be in a video games anonymous meeting, honestly.
Yeah. What kind of games would you play?
Anywhere from RPGs, role-playing games, and fighters, shooters, horror, stuff like that. Violent video games, essentially.
By the time he hit his teen years, Jacob was consumed by playing video games. Whether it began as a way to escape his difficult reality or just to blow off some steam, gaming quickly dominated Jacob's life. Since the 80s, video games have caused alarm among parents who worry that the time spent in front of a computer screen might rot their kids' brains. The research on this is mixed, with many studies highlighting the positive skills taught by games. However, there's also clear evidence that excessive gaming without limits can produce kids who are sedentary, isolated, and desensitized to acts of violence. This was true of Jacob Hearne, who developed an unhealthy addiction to gaming. Every waking moment was devoted to playing video games at the expense of his sleep, schoolwork, and general well-being. Although naturally intelligent, Jacob found himself disengaged and slacking off in class, preferring to expend his energy in front of his computer instead. Underlying Jacob's apathy towards school was also a long battle with mental health. Earlier in our conversation, Jacob mentions taking Geodin, an antipsychotic drug usually prescribed for serious mental health conditions like bipolar or schizophrenia. Although Jacob doesn't explicitly state what disorder he was being treated for, this gives us a glimpse into his dark inner psyche as a child. And Jacob wasn't alone in this. It was a struggle he shared with his grandmother. We'll hear more about that after the break.
So, did your grandma ever sit you down and have a talk about your mother, or any serious talks about anything, or she just always kept it to where just babysitter and grandma?
Well, my grandma, she was a firm believer in not sugarcoating things, even when we were little. So she tried our best to kind of play therapist, but it wasn't her strong suit because she also struggled with that.
Yeah. Did your grandma have any kind of illnesses or anything like that? She was sick, or, how old was she around the time you were growing up?
She was 45 years old when I was born.
Okay.
And yeah, she had a lot of mental disabilities and physical disabilities from the diabetes and severe arthritis. Yeah.
What kind of mental stuff?
The mental stuff, she had hearing chronic anxiety. She suffered from major depression, and almost sometimes it would be critical depression sometimes.
What are the signs?
She had a rough life.
What were the signs of the depression? Did you notice? Was it like
she would get really down sometimes. There would be days where she would be like almost a black hole of emotion,
Wow.
drain everybody in the room. It would be so sad.
Wow. That's sad.
Yeah. She had a rough life growing up.
Yeah. Did she ever seek help for that? Did she seek help?
Oh, yes, she did. She went to this place called BJC, Behavioral Health, in Farmington.
Yeah.
Social workers and therapists and stuff.
Sure. So, did you ever have any kind of, before this, what you're in prison for, did you ever any kind of fallouts with your grandmother where, it was a pretty big fight where you got really upset with her and she got really upset with you, or vice versa?
We butted heads a lot. And so, yes, there were times where we would get very verbally aggressive with each other. There was a few times where she got a little physical with me, and I did my best never to get physical with her because she was so old, and she had so many disabilities. So she would actually
get physical with you?
Yeah, she would have like wooden spoons and metal spatulas and whack me with them, or she would hit me, or she would slap me, but it was nothing,
So what would prompt her to do that?
Me being disobedient and really not wanting to do my chores, giving her a hard time about going to school. I was a mess. I was never really wanting to do anything. I would want to be late.
Yeah, but we wouldn't classify this. This is just grandma, back in the day kind of, reprimand. This is not anything serious. She wasn't was she really beating you, or is it just, the grandma stuff?
She wasn't physically capable of real beating. So right. I would never classify it as abuse, but so grandma stuff, essentially.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that, we're not trying to say that grandma was, doing something crazy, but so you never got physical with her when she would do something like that?
Yeah, there was only one time where I ever really got physical with her, and I felt horrible after I did it. I was really little. We were having a shouting match I think it was about my games, me not wanting to go to bed or something. And I kicked her in the knee, and I knew she had bad knees, and I felt, right when I did it, I felt horrible. Like, it was like, whoa. And she fell onto her chair, and I was like, man, that was not cool. At all.
And I wonder, because you explained her as being, very important in your life, and you're very close to her. And I got 4 grandparents that I've never even crossed my mind. Even my parents, I just never even thought about striking either one of those. What do you think that would cause you to do that?
Honestly, letting go of the fact that I played a lot of violent video games, and I was just an angry kid anyway for all of the crap that I dealt with growing up. But it was also just watching, people just be abusive to other people in general. So I feel like a lot of that, just seeing that growing up, it just fueled that violence.
Yeah.
Although Jacob loved his grandma dearly, their relationship wasn't all smooth sailing. Often during his visits to his grandma's home, Jacob would misbehave and be reprimanded. While contending with numerous physical ailments and a crippling depressive disorder, Grandma Phillies battled to keep the rambunctious boy in line. One incident stands out in Jacob's memory. During a particularly stormy argument, Jacob kicked his grandma in her bad knees, the force causing her to fall back into a chair shaken. Despite being an affable grandson, Jacob had developed anger problems and a concerning propensity for violence. Although the moment was quickly forgotten in hindsight, it sits as a dark foreshadowing of what Jacob might be capable of. Next time on Voices of a Killer, we hear more about Jacob's darker and violent side. If you want to find out what happens next, right now, you can sign up at patreon.com/voicesofakiller. There you can find bonus content, early access, ad-free listening, and access to our chat community. So go to patreon.com/voicesofakiller to sign up now. Your support is what keeps us passionate about bringing these stories to you. That's a wrap on this episode of Voices of a Killer. A big shout out to Sonic Futures, who handled the production, audio editing, music licensing, and promotion of this podcast. If you want to hear more episodes like this one, make sure to visit our website at voicesofakiller.com. There you can find previous episodes, transcripts, and additional information about the podcast. Lastly, if you enjoyed this episode, please consider leaving us a review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. Your feedback helps us improve and reach new listeners. Thank you for your support, and we can't wait to share more stories with you in the future. Thank you for tuning in. I'm your host, Toby, and we'll see you next time on Voices of a Killer.